I think we're live. Either way, we're going for it. How's everyone doing? I'm X O'Connor, producer here at Full Circle Music. Super excited to be talking with you guys today. Thank you for joining us. Today we're going to talk about 3 tips to tightening up your vocals. Tips that pros use every single day. And some of these are going to seem like they're extremely just basic, like, oh yeah, I already know that. But here's the thing I'm going to tell you. Having worked on music for 15, 16 years now, everyone says they know these things, but practicing them, putting them into practice is a whole nother thing. And this is stuff the top level people are doing every single day, and that's what's separating their tracks from a lot of everyone else's tracks. Because let's be honest, your music is there to connect with people, you know? It's you want to draw out an emotion. You want people to be immersed in your song and in your performance. And what is more distracting than little imperfections that just pull people out of that immersion? You don't want people being annoyed by this pop or this tick or this sound of a bunch of voices doing random sucking sounds at the same time. No, you want them just lost in the performance, not in some little technical blip that didn't need to be there in the first place. So we're going to go through 3 things to help you avoid all of those things. But first of all, I'm gonna talk a little bit about this hot new setup we've got going on. If you haven't noticed, we've started doing a bunch of Facebook Lives now because we're getting super excited about all this new video stuff we've been playing with. So actually today, I thought it might be fun to do this broadcast from the beach. And so, we figured, hey, why be in the studio? Let's go to the beach. So can someone take me to the beach? I feel the sun's rays upon me already. I feel rejuvenated. I feel like I'm about to make a Jack Johnson record, and we should get down to business right now. Sorry if that was a little too throwback for everybody. What's that? What's wrong? What's happening? Oh, it wasn't live. Sorry guys. Now I'm on the beach. That was so awkward for everybody, but whatever. It doesn't matter. Anyway, thank you guys for joining us. Let's dive in. Now that I got this beautiful beach background behind me, I can feel the waves on my skin already. So the first tip that I want to give you guys, and it's something super basic, something you can do any DAW that you're using. I'm going to encourage you to edit your vocals with compression and EQ on them. And why do we want to do that? Because there's so many times I'll get files from other people and we're going to go into mix, and you'll just hear all these sounds in the background once you put it through all of your mix, compression, and EQ and all of that. You hear all these little ticks and breaths that shouldn't be there, and little, like people clearing their throats. All of that can be avoided if you edit on the front end like it's already in the mix. So with a ton of compression, maybe with some top end spiked. So I just want to show you guys something that we do with this real quick. We're gonna make this, a nice swift ongoing experience, and then we're going to answer some questions at the end. So let's dive into Pro Tools here real quick. And I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to show you guys. I'm going to show you what we do here. So if you guys can see here, we've got a lovely vocal track real quick. And this first tip, simply putting compression and EQ on there to make sure that we hear any little nuggets that don't need to be there. So let me go ahead and let me just hit play before we even put anything on there. So let's take a listen to this first.
Oh, I was waiting on a spiritual wind, waiting for someone to say when.
By the way, that's the lovely Matt Hammett. He was delightful enough to let us borrow his delicious track. This is a hot song called Coulda Been. So what we're going to do is, you hear, it sounds fine, but now let's slam it through some compression and some EQ just to help us hear if there's anything hidden in there that might come out when we get to the mix stage. So I'm going to just throw a little 1176 on there because I love using these things. I always do, real fast attack here. Always turn this off, by the way. That induces noise. Horrifying. But we're going to really slam it, so sorry if this is loud. Let me turn the output down.
Oh, I was waiting on a spiritual wind, waiting for someone to say when.
So you hear the difference between that and this?
Oh, I was waiting on a spiritual...
Nice and quiet. This is nice and in your face.
Oh, I was waiting on a spiritual wind.
And the other thing we want to make sure we're doing, let's turn all those effects off. They're going to hide stuff. All those delays and reverbs, let's just dry them out. I'm going to put a little EQ on there real quick. A little Fab Filter Pro Q. I'm just going to take it up top, spike the top a little bit, Here we go. Let's hit play. Like right there, you can hear. Right there. See, that's already something. Let's bypass these. You're not hearing it right there, but you're definitely hearing it right here. That's the kind of stuff I'm talking about. That's the difference. So let's go ahead. I'm just going to trim that in like that, delete it, select it, draw a little fade on there.
Oh, I was waiting on a...
Nice and clean. Nice and clean. So how easy was that? That is tip number 1. Listen with compression and EQ on there when you're editing, because there's little things like that double breath or that little throat clear, the little clicks, the little mouth noises. All that stuff gets really revealed when you add some compression, when you add some EQ. So we just want to make sure we're doing that on the front end so we can edit it all out. So when the mixer gets it, it's nice and it's clean, and he's happy because he's not going to spend an hour and a half taking all that out of your track when he could be focusing on just making it way, way better, you know? Okay, tip number 2. This is going to deal with background vocals, okay? So our second tip is the background vocals do not need to have breaths in them. They need no breaths whatsoever. And I know, some people are like, well, it's the natural vibe. It's, it's the moodiness of this song. I got to be honest, in all the years of music, and we've done country, we've done Christian, we've done pop, we've done rock. There's nothing intimate about hearing people go, that doesn't sound great. You want that lead vocal to have that nice natural breath to it, and all the other ones, they're just playing to the lead vocal, but it's the lead vocal that's carrying all the weight. So let me show you what I'm talking about real quick. Let me solo up his lead, and we've got a couple of background vocal tracks here. Let me just throw these in real quick. Let me turn this group on.
Oh, I was waiting.
So you can even hear there's a little That's not what you want. You don't need that. Let's just go ahead and let's delete them. See, I'm just literally selecting it, not even being all that precise about it. Just taking it right up to the word, selecting, deleting, hitting F to fade it.
Oh, I was waiting on...
You feel how much tighter that is already? It's just, and then the words are right in. You're not worrying about, that's the stuff that pulls you out. If this is like a ballad and it's just him and one background vocal, do you want to hear? No, you just want to hear, because you want to be so lost in the moment, so lost in what he's saying, and getting the breaths out of the way, that is one of the keys to doing that, because breaths are the one thing that detract from the lead vocal more than anything. I'll just show you guys again, right here, end of that phrase.
Waiting.
You can hear the... Let's just get rid of all that stuff. We don't need it. So I'm going to just select it, delete it, fade it.
Spiritual wind, waiting for someone to say when.
Already way better. You get the end of the wind, but then you get the nice clean leading into the next line. So this leads me in to tip 3. So we've, number 1, editing with compression and EQ on it. Number 2, getting rid of the breaths on all the background vocal tracks. None of them need them, and I promise you that. No matter how much you're like, oh man, it might need it. I'm telling you right now, doesn't need it. Doesn't need it at all. It's going to clean up your track. It's going to sound way tighter that way. Tip number 3, and again, I told you these might sound obvious to you, but putting these into practice every single day, doing them every single time on every single track, that's what's going to separate you from the rest of the people. Because I can tell you, we get tracks back all the time. This isn't even done to them, and that's at pro level sometimes. So the last tip is when you're tuning vocals, and I'm not going to go into the whole tuning thing. We've got some stuff coming up on that. But when you're tuning vocals or editing vocals, but more importantly, when you're tuning them, listen to the vocals together. Okay? If you've got, for example, here, we've got the 2 backgrounds. You want to listen to those together. You want to tune them at the same time. Why do you want to do that? Because it's going to help you make sure that you tune them both the same. This day and age, because of the way the computer works, because of how Melodyne works and Auto-Tune works, when you're drawing stuff in, it's really easy to get lost in the whole visual spectrum of things. It's super easy to get lost in just like, oh, I'll go one track at a time. I see all the notes laid out there on the graph. Let's just open up Auto-Tune and I'll show you. Like, you just see all these little bits here. I'll just track this in. And then you see right here, it's so easy to just get lost in, okay, these are the waveforms, these are the notes, these are where I need to be. And it's easy to just go through this. And sometimes I've seen dudes that don't even listen. They just see that, oh, this is supposed to be an A. This is supposed to be a B. You know, oh, here's these notes. And it's so easy to get drawn into that. But so if you have two doubles, you're taking into consideration, or you're taking advantage of the fact that he sang those all together, or you're just assuming that he sang those properly each time. But what if he accidentally sang the melody wrong in one spot? Just because it's in tune, if the notes aren't the right notes to each other, that's even worse than it being out of tune, right? You want to make sure you're always listening to them together so you can spot to make sure that, okay, not only are they both in tune, but they're both singing the same part. If they're supposed to be the same part, they need to always be singing the same notes. Always we have background vocals where for some reason, one of the melodies is wrong, or something happened and the fall off doesn't match. That's all stuff that just pulls you out, and it creates this dissonance in your track that just creates clutter and confusion. You want to just have them nice and tight to each other. You want to make sure that they're singing exactly the same thing together, and then listening to them together with the lead, because it could be the thing where he sang the lead one melody, and if it's doubles, he might have sang that melody different on both of the doubles. So because both of the doubles are right, doesn't mean it's right with the lead. So you want to always be referencing the backgrounds you're editing to the lead vocal in a soloed up fashion to where you can really listen critically to make sure you've got all the parts just right. And I know that sounds super basic, but I'm telling you, it's harder to put into practice than you'd think. But if you get it down, if you do it every single time, you're going to notice that your vocal blend gets so much stronger, and that you're drawn further into your mixes, and that you're getting clearer mixes, that you feel like the vocals are tighter to each other and they just punch out of the track a lot more. So that's what I got for you today. That's our 3 tips to tightening up your vocal sounds and production. So again, I'm just going to tell you all of them one more time. Number 1, editing with compression and EQ on. Number 2, delete all the breaths out of the background tracks. We don't need them. And number 3, always referencing stereo background vocals together. And then once you've got them right, referencing them with the lead as well to make sure all the parts are working together and not against each other. Simple stuff, put it to use. You're going to have killer tracks, I promise you, because that's the stuff we're doing every single day right here. So let's see if we've got any questions from anybody. Maybe I can get back on the beach real quick, and I'll check out some questions. Ooh, I'm feeling lovely and beachy. So what do we got here? Let's take a peek, and I think Jericho and I are gonna. Okay, so we got Colin Richard. This looks really professional for a Facebook Live session. Great job with the camera work, quality, and great audio, guys. Thank you very much. So, Colin, I got a question from you right here. Sorry, my screen's moving around like mad. You know, and I'm glad you're enjoying the beach, because I am too. It's actually really warm. I feel so good. Okay, so when you're stacking vocals for the chorus, what are the big effects you're putting on the stack tracks under the lead? Are there more reverb heavy or less compression? Great question, buddy. I'm going to answer that for you right now. So pretty much when we're mixing vocals into the track, I like to keep them pretty compressed, and I like to keep them pretty affected. I like to do a good bit of the Echo Boy. I use the Dirt Echo a lot. It's one of my favorite things in the world. And then let's see, I also use Valhalla Vintage Verb, my other favorite thing in the world. And normally I have the verb blend at like maybe 18% on them. I'll also have the time on the verb down, just depending on the song, but normally it's like 1.5, 2 seconds, somewhere in there. And then it's normally like an 1/8 note delay, somewhere in there. Just something to give it a little punch through the track. I always compress them really heavily. I just, that's how I feel like it's nice and consistent. It makes it easier to ride them because, sometimes in pop music especially, you want them pushing and you want to have more of that dynamic control through volume automation rather than how the person sang them. So hopefully that answers your question. Great question, by the way. Thank you very, very much. So we got Brady, sorry. Sorry, there's a light in my way, and so it's like hard to read some of these things. So Brady, any tips on vocal doubling? Do you use plugins for that? Also, how many vocal tracks on average do you record main vocal, harmony, gang vocals on each song? We do have a plugin that we use sometimes for doubling. It's called Vocaline. Vocaline. We also use Revoice Pro a good bit. They can generate doubles, but a lot of times we just prefer to sing them. It's just getting them in there, getting them to do the melody, and pretty much as soon as we got the comp of the melody we like, we just have them sing it again. And we always have it soloed up to where we can make sure that he's singing it close enough in time that it's going to be really easy to edit. And then once we have it edited, we do use Vocaline or Revoice to kind of, align them to the lead vocal. As far as how many tracks we normally do, it's hard to say. I would bet on average there's, I don't know, maybe 30 to 35 vocal tracks in a song. And some of that is that we like to keep the leads separate, so I like to have the lead vocal for the verses on its own track, lead vocal for the choruses on its own track, lead vocal for maybe the bridge on its own track. If there's a down chorus or something like that, a down moment beyond the verses, that's on its own track. Just because in the mix it's a lot easier to affect them, because your compression for the verse might be different than your compression for the chorus or for the bridge. So if you have them all spread out like that, it's way easier to affect them and treat them without having to automate 10,000 plugins. So great question. Thank you very much. So we got Corey saying, Corey Horn, dude, shout out to you, by the way. And I'm now deathly afraid of a shark that's looming over my shoulder. Ah! And the shark is on the other shoulder. It's so confusing up here. Oh my gosh, there it is. But anyway, Corey, good to see you, buddy. Someone should get me a margarita because this beach is looking awesome. I love this beach excursion as well, my friend. I appreciate you. So we've also got another comment here. Elias, with your background vocals, are you using the same EQ on the lead vocal if the same artist is tracking it, or are you using a different EQ? I'll probably be using something similar, but on background vocals, I tend to sum them together and treat them a good bit differently. Normally, I like the backgrounds a little more compressed. A lot of times, I'll use some decapitator on them just to give them a little hair, a little grit, a little girth. And then, like I was saying before, a little bit of EQ to just pull anything that's rubbing with the vocal out. And then that delay, the echo boy, normally the dirt echo, and then the Valhalla verb, normally it's a chamber or the hall, and just, like I said, like 18%, maybe 1 to 2 seconds somewhere on the time there. But that's normally around where I start. But again, it depends on the song. There's some songs where you're wanting a real moody vocal, so maybe that lead vocal's got some serious slap delay on it. If that's the case, then maybe we keep the background vocals a little more hi-fi to add contrast between the two. It just kind of depends song to song, but there's no rules when it comes to it. But normally, yeah, I affect the backgrounds a little bit differently. So, let's see. We got David here. How many lead vocal takes you guys normally doing? That, again, depends song to song. I would say per section, because it's very rare these days that you have anyone singing the whole song down. We actually had a guy in here the other day, though, that was killing it, and so he literally just sang the song about 6 times and called it a day. But I would say, on average, any part of the song, we're doing between 6 and 12 takes of vocals just for each section. But again, it depends. Sometimes singers are just killing it, but sometimes people are sick and you're needing to really make sure you get certain words without them sounding too nasally. So it just really kind of depends on the situation. But I would say 6 to 12 is probably on average. And then we've got Steven. We've got, what's your mix bus chain? So we've actually got a lot of stuff out there about this, but since I'm on and you're asking, I'll talk to you about it right now. Normally in the stereo bus chain, I like to start with some compression, typically SSL style compressor. I'll use either the Waves SSL one or the UAD SSL compressor. And then I go for a spreader of some kind just to give it a little stereo width. And then after that, normally I'll do a little EQ. Sometimes I'll do the EQ before, sometimes after. But I'll use a Pultec style EQ, so a top boost, bottom boost, very subtle, normally 16K, just a little bit to give it some air, maybe 100 hertz, just a little bit to give it a little extra rumble in the bottom. And like I said, again, that might be before or after the spreader, just depending on the song and on what it's actually doing in the track. And then I'd move into something probably along the lines of multi-band compression. We use the FabFilter Pro MB a good bit, and just to kind of help control some of the bottom and some of the low mids if it needs it. Sometimes it doesn't need it at all. And then we'll go into limiting and maybe a little extra EQ, maybe the Pro Q2 if there's anything I need to really carve out that's just like building up a little bit too much, or if I need a little bit of extra clarity somewhere. And then probably into something like the Pro L. And if you guys haven't noticed, we love the FabFilter stuff. We use a ton of it. But yeah, just something like that. It's probably normally compression, EQ, spread, a little bit more multiband compression, maybe a little more EQ, and then limiting. And that's it. That's that. But yeah, guys, girls, thank you for joining us. It's been great. If anyone has any more questions, we'll take a few more. But if not, we're going to be doing a series of these things. We're trying to do it every week, so hopefully we'll keep on doing it. I've been X O'Connor here at Full Circle Music. Thank you guys for joining us. Hey, we'll see you soon.